What's up guys, welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb. If you want to support me, you can use my TCG player link in the description down below, or just like, comment, and subscribe. Today we're doing a deck tech on Galazeth Prismari. All we need to do is get equipment onto the battlefield, because this is going to be a VOLTRON deck, and then we're going to get a lot of cards onto the battlefield that reduce the cost of our equipment. Now, once we've done that, we can use our equipment and our cost reducers to cast instant and sorceries, such as extra combat spells. So now we'll be able to attack our opponents multiple times per turn, dealing a lot of damage to them. And finally, we can have a lot of cards in the deck, such as Shimmer Drake, to draw cards whenever we're, tapping those artifacts. Additionally, we run Urza, that way we can tap those artifacts for mana and use our artifacts and equipment to equip our artifacts and equipment. So if that sounds like a deck tech you're into, let's get into it. Let's get into that equipment. We have Bitterthorn, Nissa's Animist, and Sword of the Animist. Super solid cards for ramping us in a red-blue deck. The Reaver Cleaver is going to be amazing because it's going to throw a lot of artifacts onto the battlefield while buffing up our commander a little bit. Sword of Forge and Frontier can generate some insane value in this deck, digging us deeper while also letting us play additional lands. Notably, if we give our commander double strike, this gets pretty nutty because we're able to play 3 lands in an Izzet deck per turn. Kinda cool. Bloodforged Battle Axe. This is another one that can create a ton of artifacts. Additionally, our artifacts are going to be paying for everything, so we can tap our mana to equip those Battle Axes while having little to no repercussions. We'll still have open mana for those counterspells. Darksteel Plate can protect our commander. Commander's Plate is also going to be super solid at protecting our commander because we're going to get protection from white, green, and black. That's where a lot of the single target removal spells are, so we'll be safe. Swiftfoot Boots, a staple. Hammer of Nazan is going to be absolutely insane once we get some cost reducers going, because then we're just casting our equipment to the battlefield for almost nothing and then immediately equipping it onto our commander. Notably, Bloodforged Battle Axe goes insane with Hammer of Nazan on the battlefield. Cauldron Complete, protection, it's got living weapon, and +5/+5 is nothing to scoff at, especially when it comes with first strike and trample plus haste. And that's before we even start to look at that exile clause. Fire Shrieker and Lizard Blades are going to be super solid for giving our commander double strike. Black Blade Reforged is another super solid equipment. We really only need to get our commander to 7 power to make him a 3-shot kill, and this is one of those cards that can go above and beyond. Nettle Cyst, another one of those cards where 7 power is not going to be hard. This is going to buff him to the moon and possibly make him a 2-hit kill, which is going to be amazing with our extra combat steps. Luxodon Warhammer, we get trample, we get lifelink. Tenzagoto's Maul, we get trample and +3. Forebear's Blade, +3. Vigilance Trample. The Reality Chip is also going to be super solid for when we are trying to storm off. Now we can cast cards from the top of our library, and remember, whenever we do that, that's just like drawing a card and casting it. Lastly, we have Umezawa's Jitte. This one's super flexible. We only need to do damage once with our commander, and we can already plus him up for every turn. Additionally, if we get enough charge counters on this, we can start taking out creatures and gain a little bit of life. But let's be honest, 9 times out of 10 we're going to attack, remove 2 counters, give them +4, and start taking players out. Let's talk about how we can storm off and make those equipment cost almost nothing. Joyra's Familiar, Ethereum Sculptor, Enthusiastic Mechanaut, Foundry Inspector, all of these cards together are going to make our equipment cost nothing. Honestly, we'll only really need 3 to make that happen. That's not going to happen every game, but honestly, with this much density, you will usually end up with 1 or 2. Then we have Joyra Weatherlight Captain and Vidalcan Archmage. So now we're drawing cards whenever we're casting those artifacts and equipment. Seething Song and Mana Geyser can be super solid when you really don't draw into those artifact reducers. Notably, we can use all of this mana to equip our equipment to our commander. Additionally, we won't be tapping our lands to use these either, because we're going to be tapping our equipment to then add mana using these to then equip our equipment. It's pretty cool. Additionally, maybe we just need to dig deep. We have Apex of Power and Saheeli's Directive. This is going to give us a lot of artifacts, a lot of spells, and a lot of mana to just start throwing our cards onto the battlefield. And I know the cost might look insane, but honestly, it's not going to be that hard to hit with this deck, especially when there's so much artifact density, and our commander will let us use that to cast our instant and sorcery spells. Now that we have all of those artifacts on the battlefield, how can we abuse them besides just casting our instant and sorcery spells? Shimmer Dragon is going to be amazing for this. We can tap our artifacts and our equipment to go ahead and draw a lot of cards. Urza Lord High Artificer will let us tap our equipment for mana to then equip our equipment to our commander. Additionally, we can tap our equipment to cast more equipment. That's going to be super insane. Chrome Host Seed Shark. This one's going to be amazing because whenever we're casting the equipment, we're going to get more artifacts that then tap down for more value. And then finally, we have Cyberdrive Awakener. This is going to be amazing once we get a lot of equipment, a lot of treasure tokens. We have the Reaver Cleaver. We also have the Bloodforged Battle Axe. If we get enough artifacts on the battlefield, this can straight up end the game, especially once we start doubling our combat steps. Speaking of extra combat steps, let's talk about how we're going to end the game with them. World at War. This one's going to be super solid because we're going to cast it, get it for one turn, and then automatically get it for our next turn. Now, Seize the Day. This is the only one you have to be careful with since we do run Blade of Forge and Frontier. If that's equipped, you will not be able to target your commander. But this does get you 2 extra combat steps because of that flashback ability, so I definitely think it's really worth running. Savage Beating, if we entwine this, we can give our commander double strike also if we don't already have it. 9 times out of 10, this will just KO a player, which is pretty cool. Then we have Relentless Assault, again, just another vanilla extra combat step. Then we have Pneumatic Deluge. Now hear me out. Normally, this is like, okay, just copy a random spell, but now we can use this to copy one of our extra combat step spells and get 3 extra combats. I kind of like that. There's no way we don't take out a couple players with this. Moving on to the core of the deck, we have Emery, Lurker of the Loch. This is just going to be super solid from casting our equipment spells from our graveyard. Brass Squire. I don't like paying equipment cost, and this guy will do it for us, so I like that. Fabricate, Whirl of Inventions, and Anchor to Reality. These will all tutor up our best equipment cards. I know we don't run a ton of equipment in this deck, but between the card draw and everything that can dig us super deep, it doesn't matter because we're going to be able to get the equipment we consistently need. Brainstorm, super solid early game. Expressive Iteration, again, super solid to make sure we're getting into those cards that we need to early game. Moving on to card advantage, we have Universal Surveillance, super solid because of that improvisability. I mean, it doesn't matter anyway, but if our commander's dead, we can still use it. Ren's Resolve is super solid early game. I've been using this instead of Faithless Looting. I know that sounds crazy, but in decks that don't care about the discard, I think Ren's Resolve is going to be a new staple. Jeska's Will, super solid. Again, we can get that added mana to either equip our equipment or cast our equipment while also digging us deep. Then we went with Wheels. Wheels are going to be super solid in this deck because of the storm aspect of it, right? If you throw your whole hand onto the battlefield, you've got nothing left to cast. But Wheels can solve that for us, giving us a fresh new grip. Will of Misfortune, Reforge the Soul, Echo of Eons. Echo of Eons, super notable because we can do that twice. And then we have Windfall. And remember, what makes this deck so efficient is the whole time we're not using mana to cast these. We're just tapping our artifacts to draw into more artifacts to then cast them for almost free. And then we just have to equip them with our mana. That's the overall goal of this deck, and honestly, I think the Wills really tie it together. Moving on to removal, we have Earthquake. Super solid for getting rid of those token strategies, as well as Chandra's Ignition. Not only can this do a ton of damage to our opponents if our commander is massive, additionally, it's going to get rid of those pesky token strategies. Then we run a lot of counterspells because people are going to be trying to wipe our board of all of our artifacts, and we cannot let that happen. We have Counterspell, Arcane Denial, An Offer You Can't Refuse, Swan Song, Negate, and then Spell Swindle. Notably, Spell Swindle is going to be super solid because they're not going to see it coming. We can just leave 5 artifacts untapped, tap them all, and they're not going to be expecting that Counterspell. With that being said, that's going to do it for the deck tech, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This is definitely one of those ones I had to go out of the box with. But hey, as always, I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors, and I'll see you in the next one.